Wani came over today, but everything was different. She was sitting at my desk chair, and she wouldn't look at me. Finally, I asked her what was going on. She said she felt like she'd done something wrong that night in the city. Like I must think... But I said no. There was nothing wrong. I just wanted to say... But I couldn't find the words. I felt like I was gonna cry, but I wasn't sad. She got up and sat next to me on the bed. I looked at her. Wani, do you think you could ever... And that's when she kissed me. It's different now. I mean, we still hang out all the time like before. But now when no one else is around... Well, you know. So you could say we're dating. But it's secret. Secret dating? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the real difference. Now when we get off the phone, or go home for the night, or it's just quiet and we're alone, we say I love you. I'm so stupid sometimes. I was telling Lonnie that I got into my college summer program thing, and I was all making plans like, you should come visit me, stay in my dorm room. But she said, Sam, I ship out on June 6th. I was like, ship out? To where? She said, to basic training. What did you think I was doing all that ROTC stuff for? I guess she's been planning to join the army right after high school since she was like 12. And I guess she's really going to do it. So I was like, after graduation, I'm just never going to see you again? She said, let's just have fun while we can. They tell you to stick with the group on field trips, Katie. There's a reason for that. Lonnie and I snuck off on the side paths at Multnomah Falls and got a little lost. Okay, a lot lost. Like, for hours. Right before the bus left, we found a trail and came running down the path, soaked and covered in mud, shouting for the bus not to leave. The school called home. Mom and Dad said, you didn't get into trouble like this before you met that Lonnie girl. But I don't think they know about us. The kids at school, though, I'm really afraid that's a whole other story. Stick with the group, Katie. Stick with the group. Todd's band lost their singer. Todd said he sucked. Lonnie said he got sick of Todd's shit, and he was complaining about needing a new singer. So Lonnie was like, I can sing. And they were all kind of like, you can? And she was like, probably. But she's been rehearsing with them for like a week now. And I finally got to see them play in Todd's basement today. And she's actually really amazing. I feel so proud when she's on stage. It's incredible being in awe of someone you love. So everybody knows it's like a temporary situation till she ships out in June. But till then, I'm gonna be at every single show. get Lonnie sometimes. Like, her band, and our zine, and her hair, and everything are all anti-authority. But I watch her in JROTC, and she's doing drills in perfect formation, following orders, no question. And there's all this stuff in the news about don't ask, don't tell. Like, she's going to join the army and then have to lie about who she is. She said they don't need to know what they don't need to know. Like it was no big deal. This from the girl who trashed her locker to, like, defend my honor. I've learned when to stop arguing, though. I don't think Lonnie even gets Lonnie sometimes. Katie, you know how Mom and Dad are. Not exactly super open-minded about things. It feels like every minute I don't spend with Lonnie, I spend worrying about them finding out about us. And what would happen if they did? You know Dad's joke about the nunnery that he'd tell whenever he brought boys around the old house? I wonder where he'd want to send me. I had an interesting talk with Mom and Dad tonight. One you were never gonna need to have. I mean, you've known, right? I've known. I've known since, like, She-Ra. Mom and Dad didn't, I guess. But they saw the zine and the stuff on the locker, and they were like, is there something we should know about you and Lonnie? And so here's the thing. I was prepared for them to be mad, or disappointed, or start crying, or something. But they were just in denial. You're too young to know what you want. You and Lonnie are just good friends. You just haven't met the right boy. It's a phase. That's what I didn't see coming. That they wouldn't even respect me enough to believe me. Well, joke's on them, because they're in for one very long phase. Daniel finally came over to get his game. I'd been dreading it. But he brought this story with him that I wrote when we were little. I started reading it, and then there I was, crying at the kitchen table. He asked what was wrong, and I was thinking about how we used to be friends, how much I'd taken for granted. But instead, I told him about school, and Dad, and Lonnie. And then how sorry I was that I wasn't his friend anymore. He gave me a hug and said it was going to be okay. And for some reason, I almost believed him. I asked Lonnie what she had to do to get ready to ship out for basic training. She said, not a lot, really. You're not allowed to bring anything with you. You have no possessions, no contact with the outside world while you're in basic. You just train hard every day, and then you deploy from there. So, they'll just send her away. To who knows where. The other side of the country, the other side of the world. My mind, can't process it. That she's really going to be gone. Just gone. agreed our last night together would be our happiest ever, and we'd forget tomorrow was going to come at all. It worked for a while. We had a good time seeing Oscar off, then ran up to the attic to look through our photos, to find one for Lonnie to take with her. And looking at them, I realized they were all in the past, and there wouldn't be any more. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I cried. And she held me. She said she knew it was hard, but life would move on. I said I didn't want my life to keep moving without her. That's when she cried too. I was so exhausted. I must have fallen asleep like that, in her arms. In the morning, I woke up, and I was finally alone. The sunset light in this house is the saddest thing I've ever seen. I just want to sleep. When I'm in the attic, it almost feels like Lonnie could still be here. She's just downstairs. I'm just waiting to hear her pull down the hatch and come running up. Maybe I'll go up to the attic and wait. Oh my God. Katie, I fell asleep in the attic, in Lonnie and my old spot, and I missed the first 2 calls. I just barely caught the third one before the machine got it. And it was Lonnie, on a payphone. She'd been on the bus to Basic, and she said she couldn't think of anything but me and us, and that she couldn't go through with it, with the army and being apart and all of it. And so she got off the bus in Salem. She said, "Sam, I want you to pack up everything you can and get in your car and come find me. And let's just drive until we find somewhere for us." And she asked me if I could do that. And I said yes. Yes. Katie, I'm so sorry that I can't be there to see you in person, that I can't tell you all this myself. But I hope as you read this journal and you think back, that you'll understand why I had to do what I did. And that you won't be sad, and you won't hate me, and you'll just know that I am where I need to be. I love you so much, Katie. I'll see you again, someday. Love, Sam.
For over 50 years now, a small town called Fall River has been the permanent home for Battleship Massachusetts, the pride of all citizens of the state that gave its name to this honored ship. It's thanks to them that this remarkable US Navy memorial was preserved.
Massachusetts was one of the last of the treaty battleship series. She's of the South Dakota class, and these were fairly balanced ships in terms of armament, armor, and speed performance, which could be created within the treaty limits.
The outbreak of World War II gave a powerful boost to the development of shipbuilding in the United States. Dockyards received orders to build new ships featuring high speed, better armament, stronger armor, and improved maneuverability in order to gain superiority in the naval theater of war. However, before the war kicked off, they had already laid down ships of the so-called Washington era.
These two ships, developed while abiding by treaty restrictions, were a result of numerous compromises, and certainly weren't as advanced as the latest projects. But since World War II was happening, the shipyard had to finish their construction and do it as quickly as possible. Massachusetts was built really fast. Just 34 months after the keel-laying ceremony, the battleship was commissioned.
At that time, the Navy's General Board was considering two concepts for the battleship. It could either be a well-armed but slow-moving ship, or a ship that was fast enough but with weaker artillery. The design engineers came to a sort of a middle ground. They created a battleship with powerful 16-inch main battery and was also capable of a decent speed of up to about 27 knots. Plus, it didn't exceed the limit of 35,000 tons. So this was overall a highly capable design for her time.
Specifications. Length, 207.5 meters. Beam, 33 meters. Draft, almost 9 meters. Total displacement, 45,216 tons. The main power plant was arranged in echelons across 4 compartments, each having 2 Babcock and Wilcox boilers, and a set of General Electric geared turbines. Power, 135,000 HP. Armor, main armor belt, 310 millimeters. Main armored deck, from 146 to 154 millimeters. The armor on the turrets was 184 to 457 millimeters thick. Conning tower, from 102 to 406 millimeters. Armament. The primary armament consisted of 9 Mark VI guns placed in 3 triple turrets. Caliber, 406 millimeters. Dual-purpose artillery, 10 coaxial Mark 12 guns, caliber 127 millimeters. Small caliber anti-aircraft artillery, 6 quadruple Bofors guns, caliber 40 millimeters. 35 single Oerlikon autocannons, caliber 20 millimeters. Air group, 3 Vought OS-2U Kingfisher aircraft. Cruising range, 15,000 miles at 15 knots. In May 1942, USS Massachusetts was commissioned. Of course, you can't send a newly commissioned ship into battle immediately, but there was no time to carry out the trials and conduct full-scale training of the crew. Participation in Operation Torch served as the training mission for the battleship.
November the 8th, 1942, USS Massachusetts makes her combat debut. This was a date planned for the opening phase of Operation Torch, during which it was intended to land a force of 5 infantry and 2 armored divisions onto the North African coast.
At that time, the indirect approach had already become a dominating military strategy in Western countries, specifically in the USA and Great Britain. Its main idea is that you shouldn't attack a powerful enemy head-on, but sort of act on the flanks, on the periphery, to exhaust its economy, exhaust its armed forces. Morocco was part of the French colonial system. Vichy France had its forces stationed there. And so our hero, Battleship Massachusetts, took part in these battles near Casablanca.
One of the most important strategic objectives was Casablanca, where there was both a major seaport and an airbase. Moreover, at the quay in the port of Casablanca was the French battleship Jean Bart. Although she was unfinished, she still had a combat-capable quad 15-inch gun turret. The city itself was also a hard nut to crack. There were several coastal batteries, which pretty firmly protected both the entrance of the port and about 20 miles of surrounding coastal waters. To neutralize these forces, and for the naval gunfire support at landing, you had a significant force headed by Massachusetts, which was sent to the Moroccan coast. Ships maneuvered all night off the coast, waiting for the operation to start. On November the 8th at 6:30 a.m., the ships assumed a combat formation and headed for Casablanca. Soon they were detected. The El Henk battery was the first to open fire at the US naval force. Jean Bart's artillery immediately joined the gunfire. The very first of her shells raised huge columns of water near the American ships. The cruisers didn't wait long and opened fire at the harbor of Casablanca, where the French battleship was berthed. Along with the Allied cruisers, Massachusetts finally fired her first shots from her 406mm guns. Within a short period of time, the American battleship fired 9 salvos at Jean Bart and made 5 hits. And the shells that missed the French battleship continued on to ruin port facilities and sink transport vessels in the harbor. The attacking force got so carried away, engaging Jean Bart, that they forgot about their primary task, to block enemy ships and prevent them from leaving the port. The commander of the French 2nd Light Squadron noticed this mistake. He led his ships out to sea and headed eastward to the landing zone of American troops. The French squadron began to exchange fire with the US destroyers that were escorting the landing craft. The Massachusetts group redirected their guns to the new enemy force. At 9:18 a.m., the battleship opened fire and immediately hit destroyer Fougueux. In the heat of the battle, a 194mm projectile fired by the El Henk battery hit Massachusetts on the bow. It struck the main deck's port side. 5 minutes later, the battleship noticed 4 incoming torpedoes, just in time to dodge them. One torpedo passed by just 5 meters away from her starboard side. By noon, the battle was gradually reaching its final stage. With just one shot, Massachusetts knocked out destroyer leader Milan, and a few minutes later, the battleship hit another French destroyer. The first combat outing for Massachusetts was pretty successful. Battleship Jean Bart was neutralized. Other enemy ships and coastal batteries were disabled, and all this was done in just 5 hours.
In that operation, Massachusetts fired off almost all 800 of her armor-piercing shells at the enemy. They inflicted significant damage on Jean Bart, and a fragment of one of those shells, which hit the French battleship, is kept aboard Massachusetts today as a museum exhibit item.
All in all, the landing operation in Morocco and Algiers was a success. The separate French units that resisted the Allies were suppressed by naval artillery and aviation. By November the 11th, 1942, not a single gun could be heard firing on the northern coast of Africa. The
Of course, the French didn't want to fight against the Allies, but they also didn't want to be together with the British. The point is that everybody remembered Operation Catapult, when the British Navy attempted to destroy French ships, which were also stationed in the ports of Morocco and Algiers. But it turned out that most of the French forces showed no resistance. Only separate units did, like battleship Jean Bart. In general, everything went successfully. Victory was basically achieved even before the start of the landing operation.
The landing of 100,000 troops on the coast of Algiers and Morocco kicked off a large-scale offensive operation against Italian-German forces in northern Africa, which ended in victory for the Allies in May 1943. From the coast of Africa, battleship Massachusetts sailed back home. For several months, she underwent repairs and upgrades in Boston. The shipyard reinforced the battleship's anti-aircraft armament and updated her radar systems. In February 1943, Massachusetts passed through the Panama Canal into the Pacific to take part in fierce battles between the Allied forces and the Imperial Japanese Navy.
You see, Massachusetts participated in the war both in the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. She was redeployed back and forth over the course of World War II. Was she lucky? Well, she traveled from one theater of war to another. I cannot say the crew were lucky, as they had to suffer all these hardships. But in terms of the ship's combat career, her battle history, yes, she was. Massachusetts fought both in the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Massachusetts' battle history in the Pacific campaign began at the southwest part, New Caledonia. For month after month, the battleship, along with the main forces, advanced to the north, covering the landing of troops, escorting convoys, firing upon coastal positions. Names like the Solomon Islands, the Gilbert Archipelago, Nauru Island, Tarawa and Kwajalein atolls struck. All these places were not deprived of the attention of the battleship's main battery. In November 1944, Massachusetts participated in the Battle of Leyte Gulf, after which the Imperial Japanese Navy lost the capability to engage in significant offensive combat operations. Then in the spring of 1945, you had Iwo Jima and Okinawa. By the summer, Massachusetts had approached the Japanese home islands and was firing at industrial centers where military factories were concentrated. On August 9, 1945, the battleship fired her main battery at the metallurgical plants in Kamaichi. These were the last salvos of 16-inch gunfire of World War II. Thus, Massachusetts became known for having fired both the first and the last shots from American 16-inch guns in that war.
During her service in the war, the battleship covered 225,000 miles, fought 35 battles, sank 5 enemy ships, and shot down 18 airplanes. For her combat merits, Massachusetts was decorated with 11 battle stars. In 1947, the ship was mothballed and assigned to the reserve. In the early 60s, the battleship was stricken from the Naval Vessel Register, and her fortune was determined by the citizens of Massachusetts. They had warm feelings for Big Mamie, as the sailors used to call her. In 1965, the citizens of the state raised $50,000, which gave this World War II veteran a second life as a museum ship.